course, our mission is to improve the lives and visibility of athletes in women's wrestling. And there are 5 co-founders, myself, Lara, my husband.
I'm Arthur Hinojoso, and I am her other half, as well as operate as the president. I try and do a lot of our strategy and long-term thoughts and everything, and then I'll pass it over to Lauren.
I'm Lauren Mason, and I am the communications and marketing officer. So pretty new to the team, but super excited, and I'm working on some projects now that are going to be pretty cool. So stay tuned.
And then our 2 other members that are not present right now are Emma Bruntel and Diamond Guilford.
And Emma is our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, and Diamond is our CFO, who handles our finances and make sure all of our inventory is on par and everything. And we're a small brand at this point, but we're looking to grow here.
Yeah, and like you said, we're experiencing, it's not just the growth of women's wrestling, but really the growth of the wrestling community as a whole. And, when we're watching women's wrestling and we want to know about the events and where is it streaming and when, and, just kind of all this information. And then, looking at all of these individuals, these amazing female athletes that perform at the senior level. And, we just felt, we want to recognize that. We want to put a spotlight on, all of these events and all of these individual athletes and recognize them for, their achievements, for their performances at these events. And then especially, going into the Olympics, really pump that up because it's an exciting thing to see, just in general, the Olympics is, just an exciting event to see the international community come together. But when you have a wave of growth and popularity of the sport, like women's wrestling is having right now, we wanted to really pump that up and really show that growing audience, that growing viewership. This is what women's wrestling is. This is what it's all about, and it's exciting. It's exciting for us. We know people that have been watching the sport or have been in the sport, but for the viewers that are just coming in that are going to be seeing this, they want to be able to have access to that as well. So we wanted to be part of that.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about this and bringing on 3 other female wrestlers on board is that they're all college-age students. That's pretty visionary to have them on board in a really prominent role. Why the vision to have college-age students in such a real important role for your company?
First of all, Diamond has graduated. She formerly went to Missouri Baptist University, and then yes, Lauren is currently at Simon Fraser University in Canada. Will be a senior next year, correct?
Yep, a 5th year.
And then Emma at McKendree University, and she was a freshman this year. And for us, having these women be part of our team, they've all had varying experiences, jumping in at different times, starting wrestling, Emma out in Washington, and Diamond and Lauren from California. And really, they've been able to bring their experiences to the table, and, their achievements, their frustrations with the sport, just kind of that whole experience. And, they all have their backgrounds and educations outside of wrestling too. And we really wanted to pull a team together that was, 1, cohesive, but 2, really placed an emphasis and importance on, what's important to a female wrestler, and who's going to know that better than, other female wrestlers.
Yeah, I'd like to add also that I think it's very important that we want to create a very innovative, new, cool brand. And, who better to do that than young, up-and-coming wrestlers who know the sport and its participants better than anybody. And then, as well as, there's a lot in the technology world, there's a lot that's happening and a lot that changes and everything. So it's very important to have these young women who are learning right now in today's world that, it's very important to know the technology and be able to expand with it. And very important is they fill niche roles, and they all are having, very good education in those roles. And so it's important to us as a brand and a company to grow forward. And then also, we want them to have invested in their career. They want, their lifetime goals and everything, and give them the opportunity to reach for what they want. You also look at the sport. It's not an old sport. It's hard on the body. I'm 32 and I have a hard time rolling around on the mat just to impress my kids, So, so they're in the pinnacle of their careers right now. They're moving forward and everything. So I think it's important to get them involved.
Lauren, from your vantage point, we are always seeking more coverage for women's wrestling, but do you feel like female college wrestlers are more aware of Wreaper Wrestling and the promotion that they're doing?
I definitely do. I think I've been wrestling for a while, and even within the last 2 years, the coverage of wrestling in general, and especially women's wrestling, has totally bumped up. It's on another level. And I think Wreaper Wrestling and other accounts like that, I know there's AWW in transition as well. And even Flow Wrestling and Trackwrestling, all of these organizations, I think, have done a really good job of working together to increase just the viewership and the vision of women's wrestling. And I think that is going to be super beneficial for future generations and the younger girls who are just starting wrestling. I think they're going to be able to see girls like them, because wrestling is so diverse, and there's all different kinds of people from different backgrounds, and they have different mindsets and everything. And I think it's going to be really cool for these young girls to see girls like them who they can look up to, and they can see that they can do these things too. So I think it's really exciting. And for me, it's exciting as well, because, we always are oh, I wish there was a little more coverage of these certain events and things like that. So that's really exciting to be in this, get the ball rolling and starting in this new kind of covering of women's wrestling. So I think it's a really exciting time. And I think a lot of organizations are trying to do that, which is super, super awesome.
Lauren, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Lara and Arthur. But the power of social media, I see that with Wreaper Wrestling and just in general. Is that the trend? You see that most things are going to live as far as promotion on the social media platform?
Absolutely. So I'm actually a communications major. So I took a class this year, and it was just all about social media. And so it was really interesting to see kind of the ins and outs and the academic side of that, and then see the real world play out of it as well. And before I was even a member of the team, I saw Wreaper Wrestling everywhere on social media. And it was so good, because I'm like, who's going to be at this tournament, or what days exactly are this tournament? If I wanted to know something, then I could look on Wreaper Wrestling, and I knew they would have it. And so that's super exciting. It's super easily accessible, because almost everyone has Instagram or a Facebook or a Twitter, and it's immediate, and it's all around the world. So I think social media is the future of a lot of things, and with sports coverage especially, I think it's going to really be what's gonna have everything later on.
Lara, you're the queen of social media. You kind of handle all that. How have you developed your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our audience, we knew we wanted to reach younger girls that were in high school and college with our coverage. And where are these girls? These girls are on social media. They're not necessarily on Facebook, but there's it's memeable at this point that all wrestlers love their Instagrams, but definitely Twitter as well. And especially right now, TikTok is just on fire. I'm a little old for TikTok, but you probably never see me do one. But you look at any of these other wrestlers, and they've got their own accounts, so they're super creative, coming up with little dances or things that are wrestling related, and they're pretty funny. They're hilarious. I appreciate those that can make a good TikTok. And it's interesting right now, we're all in this quarantine situation, and so things like social media and streaming have been more important than ever, people who are stuck at home. So when it comes to doing the work that we do online and on social media, right now it's not necessarily just like our normal demographic and our normal audience that we're trying to speak to. It's everyone who's at home right now. And moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see. I think we'll see a lot more people. I don't know about being dependent on social media, but definitely on social media, online. Looking for things to watch, streaming. It's just going to be a growing trend. Just kind of across the board. From this point on, and of course, just normal viewers. Young girls in high school, girls in college. Yeah, it's pretty interesting with the changes that are happening right now, let alone even just like a couple months ago.
You got to tell me where you came up with the name Reaper, Fear the Reaper.
I think it's kind of contested between us. I'm pretty sure I came up with it in the end, but it was a collaborative effort to get there.
Yeah.
So we were, we have our aesthetic in the home. We like skeletons, we like skulls, kind of like a darker aesthetic, just, different pictures in our houses. And, we were just thinking of different, we're just brainstorming different things, brand names. And we were talking about the Grim Reaper, and somehow it just evolved into Reaper Wrestling.
Yeah, she came up with Reaper, and I was like, well, why not put a W in front of the Reaper? Just like, wrestling, there's a W before the R.
Mm-hmm.
You put a W before the R. And then I was like, we could probably just play that as a brand, like brand off that, and come up with our words, we have results. We have Reaper results, and we put a W in front of the results as well. I was just kind of thinking you could fill in the blank for what the W represented. For some people it might be wrestling, for some people it might be women. It was kind of something that was a little unique, and it kind of tied to wrestling. I don't quite understand why there's I'm not an English major or anything like that, so I don't understand why there's an R in front of wrestling when it could just be an R. So we kind of came together when we created the name.
It was a collaborative effort.
Very cool. Now, when we think about women's wrestling, I think one thing I always go back to is something my brother said, who just follows wrestling on the fringes. He said, man, I've been watching women's wrestling. He said, this is something I think I could really get into. And it really does seem like a good product just outside of our small group or our wrestling community. I think it has an opportunity to go outside of just wrestling itself. Have you felt that a little bit, that there's an energy in women's wrestling that's a little bit different than other sports?
I have, absolutely. Growing up, I did a lot of sports, and when I was trying to figure out what sport to do in college, it was really hard to decide because I had a few options. And there was just something about wanting to wrestle and being on a women's team. And there definitely is a different type of energy and a different type of person that is a senior women's wrestler or a college women's wrestler. And I think it's really, I don't know if I could put my finger on or explain what it is, because most of the time we're complaining about hard practices or something like that. But we come back and it's very empowering, and it's very, it builds a lot of confidence. And I think that's what it is, because wrestling is so much larger, and the characteristics and the things that you learn from wrestling reach so much farther than the sport itself. And so I think that these women, I don't know, who traditionally have been told they're not supposed to do these like manly or hard things or physically demanding things, are like, I can do these things and I can do them well, and I can have success in this. So I think it's really cool to see and to feel that as a women's wrestler, and then have other people, I think other people recognize that, like these women, like Victoria Anthony did that video with the singlets to the getting all pretty. And it's so true. We can do both. We can be beautiful and we can be very proper, and then we can go get down and dirty and kick your butt. So it's really cool to see the very like diverse and super wide range of what can be a women's wrestler, and redefining that stereotype is really exciting. And I think that all plays into what makes women's wrestling so exciting. I think because you're not expecting it. So I think that is definitely part of it. There's so many different aspects of it, but that's definitely a little bit of why it's so exciting to watch, I think.
And Lara, yeah, for you, you didn't wrestle, so I would love to get your perspective on why you're so interested and passionate about wrestling.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. You know, I have the outsider's perspective, and just like what Lauren said, when I started watching wrestling, but then specifically women's wrestling, it blew my mind. It really blew me away what I was seeing. And what I was seeing was women being able to use their bodies in ways that, just like Lauren said, are traditionally not necessarily, women are not allowed to, be aggressive or to really put forth all of their strength and effort into any sport. It really is different than other sports like basketball, soccer, softball. And I have a background in soccer and in dance myself. But when I've started watching the sport, I felt like I was on a roller coaster. I really just felt the energy come off the mat. And it was really also cool to see, these women go on the mat and they do, they put forth all of their efforts and, their sweat, their passion onto the mat. But then, once the match was over, a lot of these women are friends too, or, they've wrestled each other before in high school or in college, and they were able to come together and to shake hands and be friends off the mat. And you know what, another really cool thing about this sport is, there's a lot of things that you could say about the weight classes and the different weight classes, but for women in particular, we all, outside of sports and just in culture in general, we have to deal with beauty types and how our bodies should look or shouldn't look, all of these standards that are imposed on us all the time. And when you have a sport like wrestling that features from the smallest weight classes like 50 kg all the way to 76 kg, you really get to see this whole array of women and experience the badassness of all of these different kinds of women at all of these different levels of the sport. And that is just really beautiful to see, in my perspective, to place value on all of these different kinds of women instead of just kind of pigeonholing women into a certain, a certain standard. And it really just breaks the mold. It really just busts women out of, this, we're supposed to be this one, kind of person and look this one kind of way. And that's not women's wrestling at all. It's extremely diverse. You see the different kinds of girls that start wrestling and their reasons why. Some have danced and done cheer. Others, also do other, mixed martial arts, sports, kind of that crossover as well. There's just, it's super diverse. And I think that that's something that's been really misunderstood about the sport, in the past.
Let's end with this. We'll start with you, Arthur, and just go around the horn here. 5 years, crystal ball, what does women's wrestling look like?
Well, I think the metaphorical ball is already rolling. Like we were just talking about, South Dakota has just sanctioned it for high school state tournament. It's growing rapidly. We're in the heart of very quick change and very quick progression. Same deal here, but it's going to be big. College level, it will very likely have a for lack of a better word, sanctioned NCAA title. It's growing so fast that it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around what's happening. So it's one of those things that's it's very hard to predict where it's going to be in 5 years in the post-coronavirus world. But it's going to be a lot bigger than it is currently, and it will be in people, in people's perspective a little bit more.
In my opinion, we are definitely going to see an increased viewership and an audience for this sport, in addition to just a continuing increase in participation, from girls in high school, which I think is going to continue to explode the more that they see it, especially in, if they come across it on social media, which is thus going to grow college wrestling, which, feel like for a long time, we were hearing about all of these, new schools that were offering, new programs, and we're just going to continue to see that moving forward. And, the more people that there are participating in the sport, and the more people that know about it, their friends, their family members, and, we have men's NCAA making appearances on ESPN, and, I hope that that's the future of women's wrestling too, that they can have, their chance to be in the spotlight on, a big platform like that. But definitely increase viewership and audience, a wider audience, and increase participation across the board for girls and for boys. They'll see the sport, and it'll spark, interest in them to get back into, growing the boys side of things as well.
I would say I agree completely with what they said with the rapid growth and tons more sanctions. And I think most every state will be sanctioned for high school girls. And I think that, the college nationals, they'll have their own, like Arthur was saying, NCAA official big full bracket tournament. This year we had the first split off of it, and it was really cool. I think it was a little early, I will say, splitting off the WCWAs, but it's the beginning of change, so that's exciting. And we got to wrestle all the NCAA schools, and that was really exciting to see the powerhouses that they are. And I think, it's just going to be more people watching, more people participating, and I think it's going to be, I hope it's going to be a big sport, and I think it's going to be helpful for in the college scene, saving a lot of the men's programs that are affected by Title IX, things like that. And I think, and I hope it will be sanctioned at a lot of D1 schools, so girls can have the opportunity to go to these schools that they've been dreaming of since they were little, and they won't have to choose between wrestling and the school that they want. So that would be awesome for me to see that. Like my kids or my brother's kids, they can wrestle and at a college that they wanted to go to in the first place, which is really exciting.